A minimum wage worker in 1968 could buy a house. Not rent one, buy one. 7.5 times their annual income. Done. That same wage adjusted for inflation would be $14.90 an hour today. The federal minimum wage today, $7.25, half of that. And median homes now cost nearly 6 times the average annual income. Even a master's degree, even a PhD, can't cover rent. Those aren't statistics. That's a crime scene. Here's the control group, the proof the system once worked. 1976, UC Berkeley, a groundskeeper earns minimum wage $2 an hour. He works 12 weeks over the summer, takes home $960. UC Berkeley's annual tuition that year, $637. He covers 150% of his tuition in one summer. He has $323 left over for books, for rent, for life. No degree, no connections, no generational wealth, just a willingness to work. That was the American dream. Now fast forward to 2026. California minimum wage is $16.90 an hour, higher than ever. Same groundskeeper, same 12 weeks of summer work. He takes home just over $8,100. UC Berkeley's tuition, $14,200. He covers 57% of it. He is $6,100 short, and he's earning more than twice the federal minimum wage. At the federal rate of $7.25, he'd need nearly 2,000 hours of full-time work just to break even on tuition alone. Did the groundskeeper get lazier? Did the university get better? Or did the numbers get weaponized? Let's talk about who pulled the trigger. Baby boomers are 20% of today's U.S. population. They control $85 trillion in assets, 51.4% of all American wealth, 1/5 of the people, more than half of the money. Millennials, they're 21.8% of the population, nearly the same size as the boomer generation. They control $18 trillion, just 10.3% of the nation's wealth. In 1989, households aged 70 and older held about 1/5 of the nation's wealth. That made sense. They'd worked their whole lives. But by 2025, households over 70 control 32% of the wealth, a 63% increase in wealth concentration among the elderly. In just 36 years. How did they do it? Stocks. Boomers own $25.15 trillion in equities, 54% of all publicly traded shares in America. Millennials own $3.9 trillion, just 8.2% of the market. Boomers control 6.5 times more equity wealth than millennials. Same population size, 6.5 times the market power. And then there's real estate. Boomers hold almost $19.7 trillion in property. Millennials hold $9.8 trillion, exactly half. From 1960 to 2025, the share of 30-year-olds who are both married and homeowners fell from 52% to 12%. Only 1 in 8 30-year-olds today. The overall homeownership rate actually went up from 62% in 1960 to 65% today. How is that possible? Boomers are buying multiple homes, second homes, investment properties, Airbnbs. The market isn't frozen. It's locked into one generation. The average baby boomer has a net worth of about $1.6 million, median at $387,200. Gen X averages $976,000, median of $247,000. Millennials average $366,000, median of just $87,300. That's roughly 1/5 of what boomers hold. 3 generations, 1 ladder, and the people at the bottom are drowning. In 1970, the median home cost 2.4 times the median household income. Not easy, but achievable. In 2025, It costs 5.6 times median household income, a 133% increase in the ratio. And that's the national average. In cities where jobs actually exist, it gets worse. San Jose, 10.5 times median income. Los Angeles, 12.5 times. Miami, 8.7 times. A house in those cities isn't a home anymore, it's an inheritance lottery ticket. The median age of a first-time homebuyer today, 40 years old. In 1980, it was 29. They made people wait an extra decade, an entire decade of paying rent before they could even enter the market. After the 1968 Fair Housing Act, suburbs responded with exclusionary zoning. 75% of residential land in American cities was zoned exclusively for single-family homes. Minimum lot sizes of 3 to 10 acres in some places, designed to keep out anyone without substantial capital. San Francisco's zoning restrictions alone inflate land prices by $400,000 per house. 43% of baby boomers say they will never sell their home. Never. 56% have lived in their current home for over 10 years. Empty nester boomers own twice as many 3-bedroom-plus homes as millennials with children. 3 in 10 large homes occupied by empty nesters. Millennials with kids own just 14.2% of large homes. Between 1970 and 1980, when boomers needed homes, housing units increased 29%. Construction exploded to meet demand. Post-2008, when millennials needed homes, construction collapsed. Only 25 out of every 1,000 homes change hands in the first 8 months of 2024, the lowest turnover rate in decades. They built the ladder when they needed it. Then they voted for zoning laws and made sure it couldn't be rebuilt. And somehow, they're still blaming their children for not working hard enough. Boomers didn't just lock younger generations out of housing. They made them pay for the privilege of competing. In 1981, a kid working fast food made $3 an hour, and he could still go to college. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, the Social Security Administration subsidized college for young adults with deceased, disabled, or retired parents. Since many boomer parents had served in America's world wars, that program helped a lot of boomers go to college. It ended in the 1980s. They got in, then they closed the door. Average public 4-year tuition in 1963 to 1964, adjusted for inflation, just over $4,900. In 2022 to 2023, just under $14,700. A 197% increase after inflation is already accounted for. The cost of college tripled in real purchasing power. Throughout the 1990s, college cost roughly 18% of median household income. Today, public university tuition costs about 35% of median income. Private universities cost 137% of median income, more than an entire year's salary before taxes. In 1970, 250 hours of minimum wage work covered a year of public college tuition. By 2020, it took over 1,000 hours. At Penn State, in 1985, 19 weeks of full-time work covered tuition. By 1995, it was 29 weeks. By 2014, 57 weeks, 3 times longer, for the exact same degree, at the exact same school. Boomers attended college when taxpayers picked up most of the tab. Then they slashed public funding. The rest got dumped onto the students. Federal student loan debt has more than doubled since 2007. Gen X carries about $44,300 per borrower. Millennials average $40,400. Student loan paperwork stacked high. A diploma on a gilded frame next to an eviction notice. But here's the asymmetry. Only 6.6% of boomers carry student debt, compared to roughly 25.5% of millennials. The boomers got subsidized education. Then they cut the subsidies. They made degrees mandatory. They made degrees cost more than your income. And then they became the lenders. It's 1981. Ronald Reagan walks into the Oval Office with a plan. The top tax rate, what the ultra-wealthy pay, sits at 70%. By the end of his first term, down to 50%. By his second term midterms, 28%. Cut in half, then in half again. They called it trickle-down economics. Nothing trickled down but the bill. The national debt under Reagan tripled from $997 billion to $2.85 trillion. The government lost 9% of its entire revenue stream in the first few years. Reagan's tax cuts have added $10 trillion to the national deficit since 1981. Then came Bush in 2001. His tax cuts cost an estimated $1.7 trillion over 10 years. The corporate tax rate got slashed from 35% to 21% permanently. Meanwhile, your payroll taxes stayed roughly the same. Since 1980, the national debt as a share of GDP has quadrupled. In 2024, just paying the interest on that debt, $881 billion, costs more than the entire defense budget. That's like paying more for your credit card interest than your monthly rent. The federal government typically spends $6 per senior for every $1 spent on a child. Social Security and Medicare now dominate the federal budget. The rich cut their own taxes from 70% to 28%. They borrowed $20 trillion against millennials' future. Then they called it prosperity. Then they handed over the bill with $881 billion in annual interest attached. Here's how pensions used to work. You showed up, you did your job. When you retired, your employer sent you a check every month until you died. A defined benefit pension. The company took on the risk. You got guaranteed income for life. That's what boomers got. Then, sometime in the mid-1990s, companies discovered they could just transfer all that risk onto you. Enter the 401k. You fund it, you manage it, you absorb the losses when the market crashes. No guarantee you'll have anything left when you retire. Depression-era retirees averaged $6,000 in pension income. Gen X will average $2,000, one-third of that. Only 25% of Gen X will even have a pension. 80% will rely entirely on 401 kiloseconds that many already rated during emergencies. Gen X will need $1.1 million for a comfortable retirement. They're on track to have about $700,000. That's a $400,000 shortfall per person. And 24% of them have already borrowed from their 401k just to survive debt, emergencies, rising costs. Meanwhile, only 40% of boomers have adequate retirement savings at all. The American dream didn't die of natural causes. The American dream didn't die of natural causes. It was murdered. And the suspects are still holding the weapon. 51% of all American wealth